I paused at the entrance of the Grand Meridian Ballroom. The sparkle of crystal chandeliers and the sea of designer gowns filled my vision. Camera flashes popped like tiny explosions, momentarily blinding me. I adjusted the sleeve of my deep blue evening suit and felt the full weight of the moment settle on my shoulders. Lena Pierce leaned in beside me, sleek in charcoal gray. "Remember the morality clause in Section 8.3? You were right to insist on that one," she whispered. "Always am," I replied quietly. My smile stayed camera-ready, but my eyes scanned the room like radar. $700 million. That was what tonight's partnership meant. More importantly, it meant real jobs, complete with benefits and real growth paths for communities tired of empty promises. Everett Caldwell's voice boomed across the marble floor as he strode toward us, every inch the finance titan in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. His wife Lavinia glided at his side, dripping in diamonds that could fund a small nation. "So pleased you could join us," he said. "The pleasure is mine," I answered smoothly, extending my hand. He shook it a beat too briefly. "Oh dear," Lavinia touched my arm with manicured fingers. "Would you mind terribly asking the kitchen about the champagne service? We seem to be running low at table 6. My smile never wavered. "I'm actually here as a partner, Mrs. Caldwell, but I'm sure the staff will be happy to help." "Oh," Lavinia's laugh tinkled like expensive ice. "My mistake entirely. Though, while you are here, could you check if Dr. Vale will be needed at the head table?" Lena cut in professionally for the partnership announcement. Everett's expression flickered. Of course. Though, if you would not mind just confirming with security about the guest list." "I believe that is Brandon's job," I said pleasantly, naming the actual event coordinator. "Shall we head to our seats? I'm looking forward to the presentation." We moved through the crowd like a current of tension. I noted every sideways glance and whispered comment. The ballroom was a masterpiece of old money, gold leaf on the ceiling, antique mirrors on the walls, and table settings that probably cost more than some people's monthly rent. At the center, an elevated stage held a row of chairs for key participants. I approached my assigned seat, clearly marked Vale Access Technologies on the golden placard. A hostess in black rushed forward, hand outstretched. "Oh no, I am sorry," she said with rehearsed concern. "There must be some confusion. The partner seating is reserved for—" Lena smoothly produced the printed seating chart from her clutch. "Dr. Vale is exactly where he should be. Perhaps you would like to double-check your materials." Laughter rippled from the surrounding tables. Not warm, not welcoming, but measuring and testing. I settled into my chair with practiced grace, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes. I'd been in rooms like this my whole career, where power dressed itself in politeness and cruelty wore a smile. From a nearby table, Finian Caldwell watched the scene unfold, swirling expensive scotch in a crystal glass. He could not have been more than 19, but his eyes held the casual entitlement of someone who had never heard the word no. He studied me with the detached interest of a cat watching a bird through a window, probably wondering if it would be more fun to pounce now or later. The first course arrived, something delicate involving truffle foam and gold leaf. I ate carefully, maintaining light conversation while monitoring the room's subtle choreography. Servers moved in practiced patterns. Photographers circulated strategically. Everything felt just a fraction too arranged. "Your work in tech education is fascinating," said the woman to my left, a board member of something or other. "Almost like a charity, is it not?" "Actually, it is a profit center," I corrected kindly. "Our apprenticeship program has a 93% placement rate and generates significant returns through innovation and talent retention." "How resourceful," she replied in a tone that made it sound like a disease. As dinner progressed, the pattern became clear. Every conversation was a trap. Every comment carried double meanings. I navigated each one with the precision of someone who had spent decades in rooms where one wrong word could unravel years of work. Finally, dessert carts began rolling in, their silver domes gleaming under the chandeliers. Lavinia Caldwell made a small gesture, and a photographer edged closer to the head table, adjusting his lens with careful nonchalance. Finian Caldwell rose from his seat, glass in hand. The room hushed expectantly. His smile was bright, practiced, and completely empty of warmth. "Friends, partners, distinguished guests," he began, his voice carrying that peculiar mix of youth and authority that came from never doubting his right to be heard. "I would like to propose a toast to new ventures, new partnerships, and His eyes fixed on me with predatory amusement, new lessons in how things work around here. The dessert cart rolled to a stop beside the head table. Its silver dome caught the spotlight like a beacon. A hush fell over the ballroom as servers positioned themselves with choreographed precision. Finian set down his glass and moved toward me with the fluid confidence of someone who had never faced consequences. "Dr. Vale," he said, voice pitched to Carrie, "I believe you should have the first taste. It is a special recipe meant to leave an impression." I felt Lena shift beside me, protective instincts kicking in. But Vance Ramsey appeared as if summoned, his bulk strategically positioned between Lena and the table. Two more security guards drifted closer, their earpieces gleaming. The server lifted the dome with a flourish, revealing an elaborate chocolate torte decorated with spun sugar and edible flowers. It was beautiful, expensive, and somehow threatening in its perfection. Camera phones rose around the room like fireflies. "Come now," Finian's smile was razor-sharp as he lifted a dessert fork. "Do not be shy, we are all friends here, are we not?" I maintained my professional smile, though my shoulder muscles tightened. I had seen that look before, in boardrooms, at conferences, in every space where someone thought they could make me flinch. "You are very kind," I said evenly, "but perhaps we should wait for everyone to be served." Finian laughed, the sound bright and cruel. "Oh, Dr. Vale, always so proper." He picked up a slice of cake with his bare hands, frosting smearing between his fingers. "Sometimes proper is not the point. Sometimes the point is understanding where you fit." It happened fast. Finian stepped closer, invading my space with practiced ease. The cake connected with my face in a cold, wet smear. Frosting ground into my cheekbone, caught in my eyelashes, dragged across my carefully applied makeup. The impact was not hard, but the intention was clear. This was not a prank. This was a message. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then, starting from the Caldwell table, laughter began to spread. Not shocked laughter, not embarrassed laughter, but the practiced, elegant sound of people who knew exactly what this was and approved. "There," Finian said softly, still too close. "Now you match the decor." Everett Caldwell's deep chuckle carried across the space. Lavinia covered her mouth with perfectly manicured fingers, eyes dancing with mean delight. The room took its cue from them, transforming the assault into entertainment. "She will learn," a donor at the next table muttered loud enough to be heard. "They always do eventually." I remained perfectly still, feeling the cold slide of frosting down my neck. A diamond-draped woman nearby clicked her tongue and leaned forward. "Dear," she said to me, "not Finian. Do not make a scene. It is just a bit of fun." Vance Ramsey shifted his weight, one hand hovering near his belt. His stance screamed ex-law enforcement, the kind who knew exactly how to make self-defense look like aggression. His eyes locked onto me, practically willing me to give him an excuse. The frosting was getting in my mouth now, sickeningly sweet. I could feel my pulse in my temples. I could hear my mother's voice from years ago. They expect us to break. That is why we do not. With deliberate slowness, I picked up a crisp white napkin. The fabric was expensive, real linen, probably imported. I wiped my face in careful, methodical strokes, maintaining eye contact with Finian the entire time. His smile flickered just slightly. He had wanted tears or rage or humiliation. Instead, he got poised. The room's energy shifted. Laughter faded into uncertain silence. I rose from my chair, every movement measured and precise. Even with cake in my hair, I managed to make Finian look small. "The microphone, please," I said, voice carrying clearly through the tension. The nearest server hesitated, glancing at the Caldwells. Vance took a half-step forward, but my calm was its own kind of authority. The microphone appeared in my hand, and the remaining chuckles died in throats suddenly gone dry. Finian retreated a step, that familiar confusion crossing his face, the look of someone who had never had his fun interrupted before. Everett and Lavinia's smiles became fixed, brittle things as I adjusted my grip on the microphone. The spotlight swung fully onto me now, catching the glitter of frosting still clinging to my cheekbone. But somehow, impossibly, I made it look like war paint instead of humiliation. The entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen when dignity faced down cruelty. Lena, still blocked by security but watching intently, allowed herself a small, fierce smile. She knew that look in my eyes. It was the same look I had worn before every major victory in our company's history. Absolute certainty wrapped in steel. The sound system hummed to life as I raised the microphone. The silence in the room was absolute now, heavy with anticipation and something like fear. Not fear of me. Fear of what it meant that I was not afraid of them. The spotlight caught the glitter of frosting still clinging to my jawline as I held the microphone. My composure was a silent rebuke to the room's manufactured laughter. In the shadows near the service entrance, Lena's fingers flew across her phone screen. "Be ready now." Attorney Selena Ward's response was immediate, standing by with documentation. My voice filled the ballroom, clear and measured. "I want to thank the Caldwell Foundation for this illuminating display." I paused, letting the words settle. Not for the cake, though I'm sure it is excellent, but for showing us exactly what this partnership would mean. Finian's smirk wavered slightly. He had not expected complete sentences, let alone strategy. "You see," I continued, "public humiliation is not actually humor. It is a test. It shows us what a room will tolerate, what behavior we are expected to accept as normal." My gaze swept across the gathered faces, noting who looked away first. Some of you laughed, some of you stayed silent, and some of you told me not to make a scene after watching a grown man smear food on my face like I was his property. Lavinia Caldwell's perfectly lined lips parted in protest, but I was not finished. The $700 million partnership agreement between Vale Access Technologies and Caldwell Consolidated contains very specific language about professional conduct and moral character. I turned slightly, and Selena Ward materialized from the crowd, contract binder in hand. Section 7, paragraph 4, states that either party may terminate the agreement immediately if the other demonstrates behavior inconsistent with basic human dignity or professional standards. Everett Caldwell's laugh boomed across the space, practiced and dismissive. "My dear Dr. Vale, surely you are being overly sensitive." It was a moment of youthful high spirits, nothing more. His tone dripped with false concern. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately when emotions are not so heated." "There is nothing to discuss privately," I replied. The frosting on my face caught the light as I turned to address the room directly. Vale Access Technologies is exercising its right to terminate this partnership agreement, effective immediately. Camera shutters clicked rapidly. Several phones live streaming the gala suddenly pointed straight at me. Selena stepped forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she opened the contract to the relevant page. "The termination is being recorded and witnessed," Selena announced, her legal training evident in every crisp syllable. "All parties present are hereby notified that the agreement's dissolution is based on documented violations of conduct standards." Finian's confident grin cracked at the edges. He glanced at his father, seeking direction, but Everett was focused on damage control, already moving toward the microphone with his hands raised in a placating gesture. Now, he said, reaching for the microphone. "Let us not be hasty. These technical details can always be worked out among friends." I kept my grip on the microphone, turning slightly so his attempt to grab it would be obvious to everyone watching. "We are not friends, Mr. Caldwell. We were potential business partners, and you just showed me exactly how you treat partners." Lavinia glided forward, her designer dress rustling as she tried to position herself between me and the cameras. "Darling, you are absolutely right to feel upset. Why do we not move this conversation somewhere more private? I am sure we can smooth over any misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," I replied, my voice carrying clearly despite Lavinia's attempt to shield me from view. "Your son's behavior was deliberate, your laughter was deliberate, and my response is equally deliberate." Lena had made her way around the security line and now stood at my shoulder, tablet in hand. "The termination notice has been transmitted to all board members and relevant regulatory bodies," she announced, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. The room's atmosphere shifted palpably. Donors who had been laughing minutes ago now whispered behind their hands, reassessing alliances. Several board members who were present began checking their phones, reading the notification in real time. $700 million, Finian said, trying to sound amused but landing somewhere closer to strained. "That's quite a tantrum over a little cake." "No," I corrected him. "That is quite a price to pay for thinking you could purchase my dignity along with my company's technology." I handed the microphone to a nearby server, then straightened my jacket with precise movements. "Selena, please ensure all documentation is properly filed. Lena, we are done here." As I turned to leave, Finian stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for my ears. "Good. That is exactly what we needed. Lena, falling into step beside me, felt the first real chill of the night. Something in Finian's tone cut through the satisfaction of our exit, suggesting layers of calculation we had not yet uncovered. The click of our heels echoed across the marble floor as we walked toward the exit. Behind us, Everett was already working the room, trying to spin the story. Lavinia had her phone out, fingers moving rapidly across the screen. The hundreds of guests who had witnessed the scene were dividing into camps, some already crafting social media posts, others hurriedly making calls to distance themselves from the fallout. Security guards stepped aside as I approached the door, their earlier aggression replaced with uncertainty. The night air hit my face as I stepped outside. The frosting still sticky against my skin, but my spine was straight and my eyes were clear. The heavy doors of the ballroom swung shut behind us, muffling the chaos inside for 3 blessed seconds. There was silence. Then my phone exploded with notifications, a cascade of buzzes and pings that made the device jump in my clutch. "That is not normal," Lena said, already pulling out her tablet. Her fingers flew across the screen, pulling up social media feeds. Suddenly, she stopped scrolling, her face draining of color. "Ronan, look at this." A video was spreading across platforms like wildfire. The thumbnail showed my face twisted in what looked like rage, an expression I knew I had never made. The caption read, "Tech CEO snaps at charity event, attacks teenage donor." "That is not what happened," I said, my voice steady despite the knot forming in my stomach. "Play it." The video started with Finian approaching, but the footage jumped and skipped, cutting out crucial seconds. His initial reach toward my face was missing entirely. Instead, it showed me appearing to jerk forward first. The cake smearing looked like a consequence rather than a cause. The audio had been spliced, inserting what sounded like an angry outburst before the cake incident. Comments were flooding in. "Who does he think he is? Talk about unprofessional. Typical angry stereotype. Cannot take a joke. Should lose his job for this." Lena's fingers were already dialing. "We need Juno Park now." She put the phone on speaker as we walked briskly toward our waiting car. Juno Park answered on the second ring. "I'm already watching it blow up. This is not random." "How bad?" I asked, sliding into the back seat while Lena joined me. "The video has been shared by 37 seemingly unrelated accounts in the last 4 minutes, all with substantial followings, all with slightly different outraged commentary. That is not organic. That is coordinated." Juno's voice was clipped and professional. "There are bot networks amplifying specific hashtags. However, Vale's rage is trending. Sodom stew. Cancel Vale access just started climbing." Through the car window I could see Finian standing at the ballroom's entrance, phone in hand, that same satisfied smirk on his face. He gave me a little wave as our car pulled away. "The timing is too perfect," Lena said, still monitoring the feeds. The video was ready to go. The accounts were prepped. They were waiting for me to react. "Look at the donor statements coming in," Juno directed. "Notice anything?" I scanned the rapidly appearing posts. Major donors to the Caldwell Foundation were expressing their shock and disappointment in my behavior. The language was eerily similar across different posts. They are working from a script, I realized. Exactly. Juno's keyboard clicked rapidly in the background. "This is not just damage control. This is a prepared campaign. Finian Caldwell's fingerprints are all over it. He runs dozens of burner accounts, coordinates with influencer networks. He has turned online manipulation into an art form." My phone buzzed with a new message. Board member Theodore Walsh. "Emergency meeting tonight. No exceptions." "They're trying to force my hand," I said, the pieces clicking into place. The public humiliation was not the end goal. They wanted me to react. "Your face is still trending," Lena reported grimly. "The clips are getting shorter, more edited. They are cutting out everything except your cancellation announcement, making it look like an emotional outburst." Another wave of notifications hit our phones. Media requests, investor concerns, partnership inquiries. The narrative was spreading faster than we could track it. "This is what Finian does," Juno explained, their voice tight with recognition. "He manufactures reality, creates crises, then his family swoops in to solve them, usually by acquiring companies at a discount during the chaos." I touched my cheek where the frosting had dried to a tacky film. The humiliation was transforming, morphing from a physical assault into something more insidious. They were turning my dignity into a weapon against me. Set up a war room, I instructed Lena. Call in the core team. We need... My phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from my general counsel that made my blood run cold. They are invoking the continuity addendum. The what? Lena leaned over to read the message. That was not in the final contract review. Juno's typing grew more intense. Send me the full contract now. The car turned onto the expressway as Lena forwarded the documents. The city lights blurred past the windows, but I barely noticed. I was mentally reviewing every page of the partnership agreement, every clause we had negotiated. Found it, Juno announced after a tense minute, buried in subsection 12D. A continuity addendum triggered by public disruption or reputational damage. It is written like a standard stability clause, but the language, this is a trap door. If invoked, it gives them emergency voting rights and temporary operational control. But we canceled the contract, Lena protested. I watched Ronan do it. That is what they wanted, I said softly, understanding flooding in. They needed me to cancel publicly. The cancellation itself triggers the addendum. They are not trying to save the partnership. They are using the cancellation to try to take control of my company. The car's interior fell silent except for the sound of more notifications arriving. Each ping another drop of poison in the air, another strand in the web we had walked into. The 47th floor of Vale Axis Technologies was eerily quiet at midnight. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the glass-walled conference room where I sat with my crisis team. Attorney Selena Ward methodically arranged documents across the polished table. Her normally pristine suit showed signs of the hasty summons that had brought her here. "Walk me through exactly what happened," Selena said, not looking up from the contract pages she was scanning. I touched my cheek again. I could still feel phantom stickiness, even though I had scrubbed my face clean. Finian Caldwell smeared cake on me in front of 200 people. I canceled the deal, citing the morality clause. Now they are claiming I triggered some hidden provision which should not exist. Lena added from her position by the windows. The city sparkled below, deceptively peaceful. We went through that contract line by line. Selena held up a page, frowning. It is here, buried in subsection 12D, masked as standard language about business continuity. She began reading aloud. In the event of public disruption or actions causing material reputational harm, emergency provisions activate to ensure operational stability. She trailed off, scanning further. This is carefully crafted. The language looks boilerplate until you parse the implications. What implications? I asked, though my gut already knew. It gives them multiple attack vectors. They can sue for damages, freeze any funds connected to the planned rollout, and force the whole dispute into private arbitration, where they pick the arbitrator. Selena's normally controlled expression showed hints of anger. It is designed to drain your resources and keep everything out of public court. Lena pulled up financial projections on her tablet. The timing is surgical. We are 3 weeks from launching the new platform. Our capital is committed. If they freeze those accounts now... The conference room phone rang, cutting her off. Board Chair Leonard Voss's name flashed on the display. I put it on speaker. Leonard. Dr. Vale. His voice was tight, formal. I have been fielding calls for the past hour. Major investors are concerned about tonight's events. The events where I was publicly assaulted, I kept my tone level. That is a rather dramatic characterization of what was clearly meant as playful interaction, Leonard coughed. These situations are better handled privately. Your reaction has created unnecessary instability. My reaction? My fingers pressed into the armrest of my chair. Finian Caldwell humiliated me in front of our entire donor base. He is practically a child, Leonard said dismissively. The appropriate response would have been to laugh it off. Instead, you have potentially damaged a crucial partnership. The board will need to discuss this first thing tomorrow. The elevator chimed outside, and Noah Klein hurried into the conference room. His tie was loose, but his manner was oddly composed for someone called in near midnight. I came as soon as I could, Noah said, setting his briefcase down. I've already drafted some potential responses to stabilize the situation. I studied my COO's face. There was something too rehearsed about his concern. The situation does not need stabilizing, I said carefully. It needs investigating, starting with how that addendum got into our contract. The priority should be calming the markets, Noah countered smoothly. I have prepared a statement suggesting temporary leadership adjustments to reassure investors. You prepared that rather quickly, Lena observed. On the phone, Leonard cleared his throat. Noah is thinking strategically. A short-term leadership transition could help weather this storm. The only storm here is the one they manufactured, I said. Selena, I want a full audit of who approved that addendum language. Track every version, every email, every sign-off. Noah shifted slightly. That seems excessive for standard contract language. Standard? Selena's eyebrows rose. This clause is anything but standard. Someone had to specifically request and approve these terms. Lena was already pulling up email records on her tablet. She paused, frowning. That is odd. Noah, you are copied on the final contract review thread from last week, but you said earlier you had not seen the addendum. A flicker of something crossed Noah's face before his helpful expression returned. I must have missed that email chain. Things have been quite busy with the rollout preparations. You responded to 3 other emails in that same thread, Lena said quietly. The silence in the room grew heavy. Through the windows, a police helicopter swept past, its searchlight briefly illuminating our faces. Leonard's voice crackled through the speaker. Dr. Vale, I strongly suggest you take a more cooperative approach. The Caldwells are a powerful family. This resistance will only make things more difficult. More difficult than having cake ground into my face while donors laughed? My voice stayed still. More difficult than having my reaction weaponized and my company threatened? The board expects your full cooperation tomorrow, Leonard said stiffly. Good night. The line went dead. I looked around the room at Selena's carefully controlled anger, at Lena's shrewd concern, at Noah's too perfect composure. I touched my cheek one final time where the frosting had marked me. They did not smear cake, I said. They marked a target. The darkness before dawn painted Vale Axis headquarters in shades of blue and gray. My car pulled into the underground garage at 5 in the morning, tires crunching over scattered protest flyers that had somehow already made their way down here. My security detail reported crowds gathering above, a mix of actual community members and faces that seemed too polished, too coordinated to be spontaneous. They have got printed signs, my head of security said, showing me photos on his phone, all using the same 3 phrases. Vale must go. No more toxic leaders. Protect our community. Mass-produced outrage, I noted, studying the identical fonts and formatting. The elevator carried us to the executive floor, where Lena was already setting up in the main conference room, surrounded by financial reports and market projections. Morning news is running with the edited clip, Lena said without looking up. Stocks down 12% in pre-market trading. They are efficient, I replied, hanging my coat. I will give them that. The glass walls gave us a clear view as more employees arrived, clustering in worried groups. My assistant hurried in, tablet in hand, face drawn with stress. Dr. Vale, we have got a situation, she said. Someone posted my home address online last night. Other staff are reporting similar threats. Their children's school locations, personal phone numbers, it is all getting dumped on anonymous boards. Juno Park strode in before I could respond, carrying 3 laptops and wearing yesterday's clothes. The crisis PR specialist's eyes were sharp despite the early hour. This is coordinated, Juno announced, setting up their equipment. Look at the pattern. They pulled up multiple screens showing social media activity. The first wave hit within 3 minutes of the gala incident. Bot accounts all created within the last month, pushing the edited video. Second wave came from influencer accounts at precisely 15-minute intervals. Then, the anonymous former employees started appearing. How many real versus fake? Lena asked. Based on metadata analysis, Juno's fingers flew across keyboards. About 15% organic engagement, the rest is manufactured outrage running on a pre-built network. They had this infrastructure ready before last night. Through the glass, I spotted Vance Ramsey's broad shoulders entering the lobby below. The head of Caldwell Security moved with casual menace, making a show of examining exits and security cameras. Here we go, I murmured. My phone buzzed with a text from building security. Caldwell Security demanding access to all floors, citing public safety concerns due to protests. Classic pressure tactic, Juno said, reading over my shoulder. Create a crowd, then use that crowd to justify increased security presence. They want their eyes and ears inside your operation. They already have those, Lena pointed out, pulling up an email. Board just called an emergency vote for 2 p.m. today. Too fast for proper notice requirements, but they are citing extraordinary circumstances. Who is pushing the vote? I asked. 3 members aligned with old money interests. They are proposing a temporary leadership transition until the current situation stabilizes. Lena's air quotes dripped with disdain. I watched Vance positioning his people around the lobby's key points, by elevators, near stairs, covering all movement. His presence was a message. We can reach you anywhere. Lena, I said quietly, I need you to implement spending freeze protocols. Lock down everything that is not immediately essential and quietly, very quietly, secure backup liquidity channels through our most reliable partners. Lena was already moving. I will route it through the subsidiary accounts they do not know about yet. Juno, I continued, I need documented proof of coordination, timestamps, metadata, payment trails, anything showing this is not organic backlash. Already mapping it, Juno replied. Their bot network left fingerprints. The question is whether we can prove intent before they strip our resources. The morning crawled by in a blur of crisis meetings and defensive measures. My team tracked waves of attacks, more edited videos appearing, donor statements withdrawing support, community leaders suddenly receiving anonymous tips about concerns with Vale Access hiring practices. At precisely noon, a courier arrived with a thick envelope marked urgent legal notice. I opened it while Lena read over my shoulder. The document was dense with legal language, but the meaning was clear. Caldwell-affiliated partners were seeking an emergency injunction to freeze Vale Access accounts pending investigation of conduct-related contract violations. I set the papers down carefully. They want us too scared to breathe. The cold precision of it all, the timing, the multiple pressure points, the layered attacks revealed the truth. Last night's humiliation was not improvised cruelty. It was the first move in a carefully planned siege. Through the windows, protesters' signs caught the midday sun, their identical fonts glinting like teeth. Vance Ramsey stood among them, phone to his ear, smiling up at my office with the patient satisfaction of someone who knew exactly how the trap would close. The afternoon sun blazed through the glass conference room, casting long shadows across the polished table where Vale Access's board members gathered. I straightened my jacket, an armor of tailored navy wool, and walked in with measured steps. 14 pairs of eyes tracked my movement, their usual respectful nods replaced with the clinical assessment reserved for problems requiring disposal. Leonard Voss occupied the chairman's seat like a throne, his silver hair catching the light as he leaned forward with practiced concern. Dr. Vale, thank you for joining us on such short notice. Given the circumstances, we felt immediate action was necessary. The circumstances being a coordinated attack on our company, I said, taking my seat. Lena settled beside me, tablet ready, while Selena Ward arranged legal documents with precise movements. The circumstances, Leonard emphasized, being a public relations crisis that threatens investor confidence. He gestured to a screen showing Vale Access's plummeting stock price. We have a fiduciary duty to protect shareholder value. Board member Victoria Hayes, who had never challenged Leonard in 10 years, spoke up with suspicious readiness. The media coverage is concerning. The viral video raises questions about temperament and judgment. An edited video, Selena interjected, deliberately manipulated to create a false narrative. Perception becomes reality in the market, said James Morrison, another board member who typically stayed silent. We need to consider temporary leadership adjustments while this situation stabilizes. I noted how they echoed each other's phrasing. Temporary, stabilize, protect value, words chosen to sound reasonable while disguising their intent. The coordination was obvious to anyone paying attention. Let us be direct, I said. You are suggesting I step aside because someone assaulted me on camera and then manipulated the footage to paint me as the aggressor. We are suggesting, Leonard replied smoothly, that the company needs a clear path forward that does not involve public controversy. A brief leadership transition would allow tensions to cool. Noah Klein spoke up from his corner seat, voice gentle as a knife wrapped in silk. I could serve as interim CEO if needed. My relationships with our partners are strong, and I have no connection to last night's unfortunate events. I turned to study him. Noah kept his eyes down, radiating helpful concern. But something in his careful posture raised warnings. Before we discuss transitions, I said, I want to know how the continuity addendum made it into our contract without full board review. Who approved that language? The room shifted uncomfortably. Leonard cleared his throat. Contract details are handled through appropriate channels, the relevant committees. I would like to see the email logs, I cut in. All communications regarding the addendum's approval process. That would involve private board correspondence, Victoria objected. We have confidentiality obligations while simultaneously demanding complete transparency from me, I noted. The hypocrisy landed like a physical blow. Several board members had the grace to look uncomfortable, but others met my gaze with blank corporate politeness, the kind that masked whatever deals had already been made. Selena stood, commanding attention. Before this discussion continues, I need to remind the board of several legal considerations. First, removing Dr. Vale in response to a manufactured crisis could be seen as validating a coordinated smear campaign. Second, any leadership change without proper investigation of last night's events creates liability concerns. Third, there are serious questions about the contract addendum's approval process that need to be addressed. We are not removing anyone, Leonard said smoothly. We are discussing temporary measures to protect company interests. By suggesting the CEO step aside because he was publicly assaulted, Lena's voice cut through the corporate doublespeak. How does that protect our interests? The optics, James began. The optics, I interrupted, are that Vale Axis caves to pressure when its leaders face targeted harassment. Is that the message this board wants to send? Leonard's mask of concern cracked slightly, revealing irritation beneath. I move we proceed to a vote on temporary leadership transition. I move we table that vote pending full investigation, Selena countered. Any hasty action now exposes the company to significant legal risk. The tension stretched as board members glanced at each other, measuring which way to lean. I watched the subtle signals, who looked to Leonard for cues, who avoided eye contact entirely. The room felt like a chessboard where half the pieces had been secretly replaced. All in favor of proceeding with the vote, Leonard asked. Hands rose, 7 out of 15. Not enough for an immediate move, but far too many for comfort. I noted each face, each allegiance revealed. Motion fails, Leonard announced, unable to fully hide his frustration. We will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for a full board review and second vote. As chairs scraped back and members began gathering their things, Noah lingered behind. He stopped near me, voice pitched low. You cannot win this their way. I watched him walk out, those words hanging in the air like smoke, unclear whether they were meant as advice or warning. The afternoon sun had shifted, throwing the empty conference room into shadow. In the glass walls, I caught my reflection, still straight back, still dignified, still fighting. Lena touched my arm. 7 votes to remove you already. We need to move fast. Yes, I said, gathering my papers. But first, I want to know exactly how deep this rot goes. The setting sun painted long shadows across the community center's parking lot as my car pulled up. The brick building stood warm and welcoming against the darkening sky, its windows glowing with activity. Young voices drifted out, the sound of learning, of possibility. But something was wrong with this picture. 3 black SUVs were parked at odd angles near the entrance, their tinted windows reflecting the last rays of sunlight. Men in tactical gear loitered nearby, earpieces glinting. Caldwell security logos marked their shoulders. They are not even trying to be subtle anymore, Lena muttered from the passenger seat. I took a deep breath and centered myself. That is the point. They want us to see the muscle. As we stepped out of the car, I noted how the guards shifted, subtle movements to control sight lines and access points. Their presence transformed a community space into contested territory. Vance Ramsey emerged from behind one of the SUVs, his broad frame blocking the path to the door. Evening, sir, he said with exaggerated politeness. Just maintaining public safety at a youth center. I kept my voice neutral. Cannot be too careful these days. His smile did not reach his eyes. A lot of concerning activity in the area. Before I could respond, movement caught my attention. A young man in Vale Axis apprentice gear, Malik Turner, someone I recognized from the program, was walking toward the entrance, laptop bag over his shoulder. 2 guards stepped directly into his path. Hold up there, son, one called out. Need to check that bag. Malik stopped, his whole body tensing. I work here. I'm in the apprenticeship program. Sure you are, the guard gestured impatiently. Bag on the ground, please. Empty your pockets, too. My hand tightened on my phone, deliberately activating the camera. I held it low, recording without drawing attention. Around us, other students and community members slowed, watching exactly what the guards wanted. This was not about safety. It was about showing who had power, who could be searched without cause, who had to prove they belonged. "I have ID," Malik said, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands as he pulled out his wallet. "I am here every Tuesday and Thursday." "Uh-huh." The guard barely glanced at the ID before tossing it back. "Bag on the ground now." Reverend Lucinda Hale emerged from the center's doors like a force of nature. Her gray hair was pulled back severely, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. She moved with the confidence of someone who had faced down worse than private security. "What seems to be the problem with one of my students?" Her voice carried calm authority. Vance stepped forward. "Standard security procedure, Reverend. Nothing to concern yourself with. In my center, without my permission." Reverend Hale positioned herself between Malik and the guards. "I do not recall authorizing searches of my young people. Ma'am, we have authorization from the property management company. To intimidate children?" I spoke up, still recording. "To harass program participants." Vance's practiced smile tightened. "Now, Dr. Vale, no need to get emotional about standard safety protocols. I would like the names and badge numbers of everyone involved in this stop," I said evenly. "Ma'am, if you are going to be hostile, requesting basic accountability is hostile?" I kept my tone measured and professional. Interesting definition. Malik still had not moved, his laptop bag clutched tight. The guards loomed closer, trying to provoke a reaction they could use. Reverend Hale touched his shoulder gently. "Baby, go on inside," she said. "These men were just leaving." "But they cannot just—" Malik's voice shook with rage, not fear. "They can and they do," Reverend Hale said quietly. "But not today, not here. Go on now." I watched Malik's face. I saw the familiar struggle between dignity and survival, between standing up and staying safe. He was learning the wrong lesson, that his achievements did not matter, that no amount of hard work could protect him from people who saw his existence as a threat. The guards exchanged looks, realizing they were not getting the confrontation they wanted. Vance made a small gesture, and they backed off, returning to their positions by the SUVs. "Just doing our jobs," Vance said smoothly. "No offense intended." "Every offense was intended," Reverend Hale replied. "That is rather the point, is it not?" Inside the center's main room, the tension did not fully dissipate. Students huddled in small groups, voices low, shooting worried glances at the windows where guard shadows moved past. Malik sat at a computer station, his movements still tight with contained anger. Reverend Hale led Lena and me to her office, closing the door with a decisive click. The small room was warm, filled with books and photographs, decades of community history on the walls. "They have been doing this for weeks," she said, settling behind her desk. "Ever since the partnership announcement, testing boundaries, establishing presence. This is not about security. It is about control." "The deal was not just about money, was it?" I asked. Reverend Hale's eyes were tired but fierce. "It never is with families like the Caldwells. Money they have. What they want is power over spaces, over stories, over who gets to feel safe where." Through the office window, I could see Malik helping a younger student with coding homework. His shoulders still tight, but his focus absolute. He refused to be driven away from his own growth. "We are not losing twice," I said firmly. "Not the company, and not this space." The fluorescent lights of Jimmy's all-night diner buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the worn leather booths. At this hour, the place was nearly empty, perfect for conversations that needed privacy. I sat in the corner booth, stirring untouched coffee while investigator Reese Dalton spread documents across the Formica table. "Your gut was right," Reese said, his voice low and measured. He slid over a stack of financial records. "These shell companies, Liberty Metro Solutions, Apex Digital Dynamics, Westbrook Consulting Group, they are all registered through different agents, different states, but the money flows back to one source." I studied the highlighted transfers, the Caldwells, through about 6 layers of cutouts. "Yes." Reese tapped a series of timestamps. "What is interesting is the pattern. Every time there's a major real estate acquisition or infrastructure project in target neighborhoods, these companies suddenly get very active. They hire community outreach specialists and digital marketing firms." A laptop screen flickered to life at the edge of the table. Juno Park's face appeared in a secure video, their quick fingers typing as they spoke. "And those firms are busy little bees," Juno said. "I have been mapping the bot networks and influence campaigns. Check this out." Their screen filled with a visualization. hundreds of interconnected nodes pulsing with activity. See these clusters? They look random at first glance, like organic traffic, but the timing is too perfect. The language patterns are too consistent. Someone is conducting the chaos, I said. Exactly, and they are good, really good. They know how to make manufactured outrage feel authentic. But there are signatures. Juno highlighted several nodes. These accounts activate in precise sequences, different names, different profile pictures, but the same underlying code. Someone trained in social engineering built this system. The diner's bell chimed. Reverend Lucinda Hale entered carrying a weathered leather notebook. She slid into the booth beside me, her presence bringing gravity to the gathering. "I brought what you asked for," Hale said, placing the notebook on the table. "Been keeping these records for 12 years. Nobody else was watching, so I did." I opened the notebook carefully. Inside, in Hale's precise handwriting, were dates, names, amounts, notes about charitable donations to neighborhood programs, followed by eviction notices 2 months later, construction permits granted the day after emergency board meetings, community leaders who changed their positions after private meetings about their children's college funds. Here, Hale pointed to an entry from 3 years ago. The Caldwells donated $500,000 to preserve historic architecture in the Hamilton district. 2 weeks later, 17 small businesses got notice their leases would not be renewed. All Black-owned, all replaced by luxury boutiques within 6 months. The donation was cover. "It is always cover," Reese observed. "It is," Hale said. "They do not just buy buildings. They buy the story about the buildings. They do not just take spaces. They change who feels welcome in those spaces. Your company was not just a business target, Dr. Vale. They want your data, your infrastructure contracts, because that is how they will know where to move next." I turned another page in Hale's notebook. "You documented everything." Had to, because every time someone spoke up, the same pattern played out. Sudden scandals, social media attacks, private security showing up at their doors with concerns. Sound familiar? Juno's typing grew more intense. "Speaking of patterns, I am seeing elevated bot activity right now. They are preparing something." My phone buzzed. A text from Lena. "Server logs show unauthorized access night of gala. Internal credentials used. Someone was in our system before it all went down." "An inside job," Reese said quietly. "Not just inside," I replied. "Someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. Someone who understood both our technical infrastructure and our governance vulnerabilities." The group fell silent as a tired waitress refilled our coffee cups. When she moved away, Hale spoke again, her voice carrying decades of stored truth. "This is bigger than one night, one incident," she said. "That cake was not just about humiliating you. It was about showing everyone else what happens when you do not play by their rules. But rules only work when people accept them." Juno's screen flashed with new data. "The bot network is shifting. They are positioning for some kind of narrative pivot." Reese gathered his documents with methodical care. "We need to move carefully. They have built layers of deniability into everything. Then we will peel back every layer," I said. I touched Hale's notebook gently. "You kept these records because you knew someday they would matter. Now they do." I stood, sliding the notebook into my bag. The diner's lights caught the determination in my eyes. We are going to tell the truth so loudly they cannot bury it. Across town, in his perfectly curated home office, Finian Caldwell adjusted his camera and practiced his most sincere expression. He recorded take after take until the apology video felt right, humble but not weak, regretful but not guilty. As he posted it to his verified accounts, his other screens showed the real work. Thousands of coordinated posts flooding every platform, shaping the story even as he appeared to apologize for it. His manufactured contrition went live at exactly 11 p.m., timed to make morning headlines, crafted to make him look mature and thoughtful. And in its shadow, his digital army attacked with renewed fury, targeting not just me, but anyone who dared support me. Early morning sunlight streamed through my office windows as my core team assembled. The city was just waking up, but we had been working for hours, fueled by determination and strong coffee. Juno Park's laptop displayed frame-by-frame analysis of the newly acquired video footage. "Look at this," Juno said, zooming in on a perfect, unobstructed angle. "Crystal clear, no editing tricks possible. You can see Finian's expression change right before he does it. That split second of predatory satisfaction." I leaned closer to watch. The footage showed everything: Finian's calculated approach, the cake smearing across my face, and most importantly, Everett and Lavinia Caldwell's immediate laughter. Their reactions proved premeditation. They had expected it. They had encouraged it. The metadata is clean too, Juno continued, pulling up a technical report. Original timestamp, location data, device information, all intact. They cannot claim this was manipulated. Lena paced by the window, phone pressed to her ear. She ended her call with a rare smile. Catherine Chen from Meridian Capital is willing to go on record. Says she has seen enough country club bullying in her career. She will back you publicly and commit to maintaining their position. That is significant, Selena said, looking up from her legal documents. Meridian holds what, 12%? 14, Lena confirmed, and they have influence with other institutional investors. Selena spread papers across the conference table, each stack precisely organized. I have drafted the injunction request. We are hitting them from multiple angles: harassment, market manipulation, coordinated defamation. The evidence of their bot network is particularly damning. Timeline? I asked. We file everything within the hour. The press conference gives us qualified privilege for the initial disclosure. Then, we follow immediately with court submissions. Selena checked her watch. Local news crews are already setting up downstairs. For the first time in days, the tension in my shoulders began to ease. I looked at my team. Lena's quiet competence, Juno's technical precision, Selena's legal expertise. We had worked through the night building an airtight case. We are not just defending ourselves anymore, I said. We are exposing their whole system. Juno's screens showed real-time analytics. Social sentiment is already shifting. People are asking questions about Finian's apology video, noticing the convenient timing, the manufactured responses. The stocks are stabilizing too, Lena added. Once Catherine speaks. A commotion erupted in the outer office. Heavy footsteps approached. The door opened and 3 federal agents entered, badges displayed. Behind them, Noah Klein stood in the doorway, his face a mask of practiced concern. Dr. Vale, the lead agent said, I am Agent Carroll with the Financial Crimes Division. We are here regarding allegations of serious data privacy violations. Selena stepped forward. I am Vale Access General Counsel. What is the nature of these allegations? We have evidence of unauthorized data collection and misuse of personal information. Carroll produced a document. This complaint was filed internally through proper channels. We are executing an immediate freeze on corporate accounts pending investigation. Lena's phone buzzed. The banks. Everything is locked. Payroll, operations, all of it. Juno's fingers flew across their keyboard. They are blocking system access too. Critical servers are being restricted. Selena snatched the complaint, scanning rapidly. Her expression darkened. This filing, the authorization signature. She turned to Noah. You submitted this? Noah straightened his tie, every movement deliberate. As Chief Operating Officer, I have a responsibility to report potential violations. When I discovered irregularities. What irregularities? My voice cut through his practiced speech. Show me exactly what you found. The details are in my filing, Noah said smoothly. I was trying to protect the company from potential liability. These issues required immediate attention. You are lying, I stood, calm fury radiating from my stillness. You have been lying for months, have you not? Working for them? Noah's smile did not reach his eyes. I was trying to protect the company. Reporters began gathering outside the building. Phones rang unanswered throughout the office. Employees stood in clusters, whispering anxiously about frozen accounts and system lockouts. Hours crawled by in a blur of crisis calls and emergency meetings. The press conference collapsed before it began. Catherine Chen regretfully withdrew her support, citing developing concerns. The stock price fell like a stone. Evening shadows lengthened across my office. I sat alone, staring at my phone. Social media exploded with that damned photo, my face smeared with frosting, now edited into countless cruel memes, each one tagged with Finian's signature smirking emoji. The betrayal cut deep. Noah had been my COO for 3 years. He had sat in this very office countless times, planning strategy, sharing concerns, always so helpful, so supportive. Every suggestion, every introduction, every policy change, all of it designed to create this moment. My phone buzzed with a text from Reverend Hale. Meet me tonight. I have the missing piece. The community center stood dark against the night sky. its windows reflecting scattered streetlight through sheets of rain. I parked around back, away from the main street, and hurried through the downpour to the service entrance where Reverend Hale waited. "You came alone?" Hale asked, ushering me inside as requested. I followed her through the quiet hallways. Juno and Investigator Dalton are joining remotely. The back room was small but secure. No windows, one door, and thick concrete walls that had withstood decades of neighborhood change. A laptop sat open on a folding table, screens showing Juno and Reese in separate windows. The rain's steady tapping filtered through the ceiling, marking time like a metronome. Reverend Hale locked the door and pulled a worn leather portfolio from her desk drawer. "Before I show you this, you need to understand something. People think the Caldwells built their fortune on real estate and finance. That is not quite right." She removed an envelope sealed with aged tape. "They built it on silence, on making problems disappear." "What kind of problems?" I asked. "People who would not sell, reporters who asked questions, community leaders who fought back." Hale's eyes held old anger, anyone who stood in their way. She produced a USB drive, its label faded but still legible, a date from 6 years ago. "This came to me from someone who could not stay quiet anymore. I've kept it safe, waiting for the right moment and the right person to use it." Juno leaned closer to their camera. "What is on it?" "A deposition from someone who helped build their machine." Hale inserted the drive into the laptop. He was one of their reputation consultants before that title existed. When he realized what they were really doing, he recorded everything. 3 weeks later, he died in a single-car accident. A video file appeared on screen. Juno began running authentication protocols immediately. "The metadata looks original, no signs of tampering. I'm creating verified hashes now." The recording showed a man in his 50s speaking directly to camera. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly as he detailed a systematic operation. Shell companies layered within shell companies, each designed to distance the Caldwells from their tactics. He described how they had perfected their methods, paid protesters, coordinated social media campaigns, edited footage that could make anyone look unstable. They called it narrative adjustment, the man explained, but it was destruction. They would identify acquisition targets, usually minority-owned businesses that had something they wanted. Then, they would engineer a crisis, manipulate public opinion, and swoop in to buy at panic prices. Reese took notes rapidly. "These intermediary companies he is naming. They match the patterns in your records, Reverend. Same shells, same players, just cycling through different front names." "The cake incident," I said quietly. "It was not random cruelty, it was choreographed. They needed a trigger point." "Keep watching," Hale advised. The deposition continued. The man described their placement program, identifying promising executives, grooming them with offers and introductions, then embedding them in target companies. These plants would spend years building trust, gathering intelligence, and creating subtle vulnerabilities in corporate governance. "Noah," I breathed. That is what he was, a placement. Juno's typing grew more intense. "It fits. I am tracking his career path before Vale Axis. He worked for 3 different firms with Caldwell connections. Each one went through a hostile takeover within 18 months of his departure. The federal complaint he filed," Reese added, "it is almost identical to complaints filed against those other companies. Same structure, same timing, same outcome. Accounts frozen just when the target company was about to expose something." Rain drummed harder overhead as I absorbed the implications. Every meeting with Noah, every casual suggestion, every policy change he had advocated, all of it designed to create openings for this moment. He had not just betrayed my trust, he had spent years building a trap. "There is more," Hale said, spreading documents from her notebook across the table. "These dates here, each one marks when a Caldwell-linked security firm showed up in the neighborhood. Always after some incident that never made the news, always before property values suddenly dropped and longtime owners had to sell. I studied the pattern, like Vance Ramsey at the gala. They use security as intimidation, then call the targets unstable for objecting." "Exactly," Hale confirmed. "And these names here, community leaders who pushed back. Each one faced anonymous harassment campaigns, social media attacks, edited videos, personal information leaked. Sound familiar?" "It is their playbook," Reese observed. "They have refined it over years. The cake incident was not improvised. It was just the most public version of what they have always done." Juno's screen filled with verification data. The deposition's authenticity checks out. File creation date matches the label. No signs of manipulation. This is primary source evidence of a long-term criminal enterprise. I stood, decision crystallizing. I pulled out my phone and dialed Selena Ward's number. The rain seemed to pause with me as I waited for my attorney to answer. Selena, stop trying to win in public first. We are going to win in court and then let the public watch them fall. The federal building's conference room could have been anywhere. Beige walls, institutional carpeting, fluorescent lights that made everything look flat and tired. But at 7 a.m., with case files stacked in precise towers across the table, it felt like neutral ground, a place where truth might actually matter. I watched Agent Mara Quinn review the first document set, her expression giving nothing away. The federal investigator's dark suit and steady hands spoke of someone who had seen powerful people try to charm their way out of consequences before. Let us be clear, Quinn said, looking up from a particularly dense financial record. You are alleging systematic corporate fraud, market manipulation, and coordinated harassment through shell entities. We are not alleging, Selena Ward replied, sliding another folder forward. We are demonstrating with timestamps, banking records, and verified metadata. I maintained my composure as Quinn examined the USB drive containing the deposition. The weight of the last few days pressed against my shoulders, but I refused to let it show. This was not about emotion. It was about evidence. The shell company network is structured in layers, Lena explained, spreading out a diagram. Each entity exists just long enough to execute an acquisition or pressure campaign, then dissolves. But the payment patterns are consistent. Quinn's pen moved steadily across her notepad. And you can prove these entities connect directly to the Caldwells through board memberships, shared addresses, and recurring transfers, Lena confirmed. We have mapped 5 years of activity showing the same operational signatures. Selena opened her laptop, pulling up the gala footage. The recent incident was not isolated. It followed their established pattern. Create public humiliation, manipulate the narrative, then exploit the chaos for acquisition. The unedited video played silently. Finian's calculated approach, the cake impact, the practiced laughter from his parents. Quinn watched without comment, but her jaw tightened slightly at the room's reaction to the assault. We have the edited version they distributed as well, I added. Juno Park's forensic analysis shows it was altered within minutes of the incident using software licensed to one of their shell companies. And this ties to the previous pattern? Quinn asked. Yes, I handed over Reverend Hale's notebook. These dates and names document similar incidents: security intimidation, coordinated harassment, and forced property sales. The same tactics, just usually hidden from cameras. Quinn studied the notebook carefully. This is detailed record-keeping. Reverend Hale understood what documentation meant, I said. She knew someone would need proof someday. Lena's phone buzzed. She checked it and frowned. Leonard Voss just called an emergency board meeting for 2 p.m. The agenda lists leadership stability measures. They are moving faster than expected, Selena observed, likely because they know we are here. Quinn set down her pen. You understand I cannot intervene in board proceedings. Any investigation will take time to develop, and it will not protect you from immediate corporate action. We know, I replied. That is why we have prepared parallel strategies. Lena pulled up another document on her tablet. We have discovered something critical about the federal complaint Noah Klein filed. He did not just submit it. He used my emergency authorization token to do it. Meaning? Quinn asked. He staged my digital fingerprint, Selena explained. The complaint appears to come from me myself, suggesting instability. It is fraud, but proving that will not happen fast enough to stop the board vote. So we are filing for an immediate temporary restraining order, I continued. The evidence of Noah's deception, combined with the documented pattern of targeting, should be enough to pause any removal attempt while the broader investigation proceeds. Quinn nodded slowly. Logical approach, but the Caldwell's influence runs deep. Are you prepared for how they might retaliate? We are beyond preparation, I said. We are acting. Juno is coordinating a legal, compliant live stream of the board meeting. Everything in the open, everything by the book. Transparency is a shield, Selena added. No emotional appeals, just documented facts presented under proper observation. Agent Quinn gathered the files into her briefcase, movements precise and methodical. I will verify everything independently. If it holds up, and I suspect it will, This goes well beyond a single company dispute. I stood, smoothing my jacket with steady hands. The fluorescent lights still hummed, but the room felt different now. The evidence towers had served their purpose, not as pleas for help, but as foundation stones for justice. "Dr. Vale," Quinn said as we prepared to leave, "if your evidence holds, you are not the target anymore." I met her eyes directly. "Good, because I am done being hunted." I stepped into the hallway where Lena waited with our next set of files. The morning sun slanted through nearby windows, catching dust motes in bars of light. In a few hours we would face the board, but now we carried something stronger than outrage. We had proof, and proof properly structured was harder to dismiss than any protest. Selena checked her watch. "The TRO filing is ready. Shall we proceed?" "Yes," I said. "It is time to show them what happens when they mistake documentation for weakness." The Caldwell Tower stretched into the afternoon sky like a glass dagger. Its reflective surface cast sharp shadows across the city below. On the 47th floor, Selena and I were escorted into a conference suite where floor-to-ceiling windows made the room feel exposed, vulnerable. Everett Caldwell sat at the head of the massive table, perfectly tailored in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Lavinia perched beside him, her pearl necklace catching the light as she offered a practiced smile. Finian lounged in his chair, scrolling through his phone with performative boredom. Vance Ramsey stood by the door, arms crossed, his security badge gleaming. His presence was meant to remind everyone who controlled the space. "Dr. Vale," Everett's voice carried that particular tone of false warmth reserved for surrender negotiations. "Thank you for being reasonable about this meeting." I took my seat with deliberate calm. Selena beside me with a slim recording device visible on the table. "Before we begin," Selena said, "we need to establish consent for recording. This is a standard legal requirement." "Oh, surely that is not necessary for a friendly discussion," Lavinia laughed softly. "It is non-negotiable," I stated. Selena proceeded with clinical precision. "For the record, please state your name and verbal consent to audio recording of this meeting." One by one they complied, perhaps amused by what they saw as pointless formality. Everett first, then Lavinia. Finian rolling his eyes as he gave his name, even Vance from his position by the door. "Now then," Everett spread his hands on the polished table. "We have prepared a very generous exit package, full market value for your shares plus a comfort premium. You can walk away with dignity intact." Lavinia nodded encouragingly. "And if you would consider a brief statement, just expressing regret for any misunderstandings, it would help smooth things over with the public." "The public?" Finian snorted, finally setting down his phone. "They are so easy to move. Watch this." He pulled up a social media dashboard on his tablet. "See these trending topics? I can flip them in an hour. It is like conducting an orchestra of idiots." "Finian," Lavinia warned, but her son was on a roll. "No, Mom. Let me show them how it works. It is actually pretty brilliant." He leaned forward, animated. "Now, you start with a few key accounts, influencers who will say anything for the right price. Then you amplify with bot networks, edit some clips to match the narrative, and suddenly everyone is sure they know what really happened." "It is quite impressive," Everett said proudly. "Finian has a natural talent for digital perception management." "That is what you are calling it?" I asked quietly. "I call it winning," Finian shrugged. "People believe what they're told to believe. Watch. I could probably make half the internet think you robbed a bank by dinner time." Vance shifted his weight by the door, a subtle reminder of consequences. "The point is," Everett continued smoothly, "public opinion has already settled. The continuity addendum gives us clear legal grounds to proceed with acquisition. We included that provision specifically to handle situations like this." "Situations where someone needs to learn their place," I noted. "Situations requiring decisive action," Everett corrected. "The addendum provides a clean mechanism for transferring control when leadership becomes unstable. We really did hope you would be more cooperative about the partnership." Lavinia sighed. The cake incident was meant to be a teaching moment. Finian laughed. "Come on. It was funny and it worked perfectly. Got exactly the reaction we needed to trigger the clause." "The clause you built in advance," I noted. "Of course we did," Everett said. "That is just good business practice. Always have a backup plan for dealing with difficult elements." Vance took a step closer to the table, his presence a looming threat. "I think we are done here," I said, standing. "You should sit back down," Vance suggested, his tone carrying years of practiced intimidation. "No, I do not think I will." I gathered my belongings with careful movements. "Go ahead," Finian called after me, laughter in his voice. "The public already chose. They chose us. They always do." I walked to the door without looking back, Selina following with the recorder safely secured. Neither of us spoke until we reached the elevator, leaving the Caldwells to their assumed victory. As the doors closed, Vance's shadow still visible in the hallway, I finally allowed myself to exhale. The recording device in Selina's briefcase held every word, every admission, every threat, exactly as planned. But we were not finished yet. The real work was still to come. We descended past floor after floor of polished glass and steel, the empire the Caldwells had built through fear and manipulation. But empires could fall, especially when their rulers became too comfortable with their own power to guard their tongues. The lobby's marble floors echoed under our heels as we walked out into the afternoon sun. Behind us, the tower cast its long shadow across the street, but I stepped purposefully into the light. We had what we came for. Now it was time to use it. The Vale Access Technologies boardroom hummed with tension as evening shadows stretched across the city. Board members filed in, some in person, others connecting remotely, their faces tiled across the massive display screen. Leonard Voss adjusted his tie, a subtle tell of discomfort as he noticed the professional camera set up in the corner. Juno Park sat at their workstation, fingers moving with practiced precision across multiple screens. Corporate live stream initiated, all security protocols verified, broadcasting in 3, 2. "This is absolutely inappropriate," Leonard interrupted, rising from his chair. "We cannot conduct sensitive board business under these conditions." Selina Ward stepped forward, document in hand. "Actually, Mr. Voss, we not only can, we must. I have filed a temporary restraining order regarding board actions citing shareholder interests. Given the current situation, transparency is not optional." She gestured to the camera. "This is a verified corporate channel following all SEC guidelines for public companies under review." Noah Klein shifted in his seat, his usual smooth demeanor showing cracks. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately first." "No more private discussions," I stated, my voice carrying the weight of too many closed-door ambushes. I nodded to Juno, who activated the main presentation screen. The unedited gala footage played first. The room watched in complete silence as Finian Caldwell's assault unfolded without clever cuts or manipulated audio. Several board members flinched at the raw cruelty of it, seeing the truth without the sanitizing filter of social media spin. "Now," I continued, "let us examine what followed." I clicked to the next slide as Lena distributed documents to each board member. Receipt after receipt appeared, bot network purchases, coordinated timing of paid posts, shell company transfers that created the illusion of organic outrage. The data was meticulous, each transaction tied to specific attacks on Vale Access and its leadership. "This is not just about cake," I explained. "It is about a systematic attempt to devalue and seize control of this company through manufactured crisis." Leonard tried to interject. "Dr. Vale, your tone..." Backed by evidence, Selina cut in smoothly. She activated an audio clip from the settlement meeting. Finian Caldwell's voice filled the room with unmistakable pride as he detailed his manipulation techniques. Several investors on the video call leaned closer to their cameras. One unmuted to ask, "Is he admitting to securities fraud?" "Among other things," Selina confirmed. "The full recording has been provided to relevant authorities." Noah maintained his composed facade, though his fingers drummed a nervous pattern on the table. "This is all circumstantial. We need to focus on stabilizing." "Interesting choice of words," Lena interrupted, bringing up a new screen. "Let us talk about stability and system access." Complex log data filled the display. "These are the authentication records from our secure servers. Note the pattern of access using Dr. Vale's emergency authorization token." She highlighted specific entries. The token was used to approve the federal complaint filing at 3:47 a.m. from an IP address matching Mr. Klein's home network. Dr. Vale was in a documented meeting at that time with multiple witnesses. Color drained from Noah's face. "That is not the same token," Lena continued relentlessly. "It was used to transfer sensitive documents to external servers registered to Caldwell shell companies. The device signatures match your personal laptop, Noah, the one you are typing on right now." A board member unmuted. Mr. Klein, is this accurate? Noah's practiced calm cracked completely. You do not understand the pressure. We understand perfectly, I said quietly. Selena stood. I moved to terminate Noah Klein's employment for cause effective immediately and refer evidence of his actions to prosecutors for review. I second, Lena stated firmly. Leonard looked desperately around the room, searching for allies, but found none. The evidence was too clear, the betrayal too complete. We will need to vote, he said. Yes, I agreed. We will, transparently, right now. The vote was not close. Security waited outside the boardroom, having been notified in advance. They approached with professional courtesy as Noah was stripped of his credentials and escorted from the building. The live stream caught every moment. The same unblinking lens that had broadcast my humiliation now documented accountability in action. Leonard's phone began to vibrate. Then other phones joined in, creating a chorus of incoming messages. Partners were calling, investors demanding explanations, donors frantically trying to distance themselves from the Caldwell connection. Through it all, I remained seated, hands steady on the table. I watched as the room's power dynamics realigned around the weight of truth rather than the shadow of influence. For the first time since the gala, I allowed myself a full breath, feeling the bands of pressure around my chest finally begin to loosen. Dr. Vale, an investor, spoke from the screen. I believe we owe you an apology. No, I replied, you owe this company your vigilance. The truth was always there. We just had to be willing to see it. Lena squeezed my shoulder as board members began gathering their things. Some avoiding eye contact, others offering awkward nods of acknowledgement. The live stream ended, but its impact was already rippling through social media, group chats, and news alerts. This time, without manipulation, without artificial amplification, just the clean, sharp light of consequences illuminating the darkness of entrenched power. Morning sunlight streamed through the community center's windows, catching dust motes in golden beams. I sat at a worn table, watching Reverend Hale pour coffee with the same careful attention she gave everything, like even the smallest acts carried weight. You take yours black, if I remember right, Hale said, sliding a steaming mug across the scratched surface. Always have. I wrapped my hands around the warmth, anchoring myself in this moment of quiet before the storm fully broke. On the wall-mounted TV, a news ticker crawled with updates. The center's regular morning crowd gathered in small clusters, their usual chatter punctuated by gasps and pointing at screens. Every phone buzzed with notifications as the story exploded across networks, this time driven by facts, not manipulation. Agent Mara Quinn strode through the door, her presence carrying the gravity of official action. Dr. Vale, the warrants are being executed as we speak. She accepted a coffee from Hale with a grateful nod. Multiple shell companies, digital assets, linked accounts, all frozen pending investigation. How many shells did you find? I asked. More than 30 so far. The network goes deeper than even your evidence suggested. Quinn's phone lit up with another update. They are hitting the main Caldwell offices now. Malik Turner burst in, still wearing his apprenticeship badge, practically vibrating with energy. Did you see? They are live streaming it at the Garden Club. He pulled up a newsfeed on his phone, gathering everyone around. The footage showed the Caldwell's carefully orchestrated redemption luncheon dissolving into chaos. Society photographers who had come for staged apologies instead captured Everett Caldwell's practiced smile, crumbling as federal agents appeared at the edges of the frame. His face shifted from confusion to realization to barely contained panic, each moment preserved in high-definition clarity. Watch Lavinia, Hale murmured, pointing to the screen's corner. Lavinia Caldwell stood frozen in designer silk. Her perfect posture, a statue of denial as longtime allies, physically stepped away from her. Women who had shared her charity boards and private boxes now turned their backs. Phones already out to delete photos and untag connections. The room's temperature dropped degree by degree as decades of cultivated influence evaporated in real time. Mom says half the donor board already resigned, Malik added, scrolling through updates. They are all claiming they had no idea about anything. Finian appeared on screen next, his usual smirk replaced by something younger and less certain. He tried his practiced lines about youthful mistakes and learning experiences, but the reporters were not playing along anymore. They had screenshots of his coordinated attack plans, timestamps of his late-night manipulation sessions, receipts for bought influence and manufactured consent. "What is happening to their accounts?" someone asked. Agent Quinn checked her tablet. Complete lockdown. The same financial weapons they used against Vale Axis are being applied to their own assets, legally, with full documentation of probable cause. She allowed herself a small smile. Turns out evidence works better than intimidation. I stood, smoothing my jacket. "Speaking of evidence and consequences, Malik, could you join me for a moment? There is something we need to announce." We moved to the center's main hall where media had gathered respectfully behind Hale's prescribed boundaries. Cameras focused as I stepped to the podium, Malik nearby. "Vale Axis Technologies is pleased to announce a new partnership consortium," I began, my voice carrying easily through the space. "One built on ethical oversight and community benefit, maintaining our planned expansion without compromising our values." I outlined the structure: local stakeholders, transparent governance, distributed opportunity. Jobs were not just safe, they were growing. The apprenticeship program would double its capacity. And to demonstrate our commitment to long-term investment in talent, I continued, we are establishing the Turner Innovation Scholarship, named for one of our most promising young team members. I turned to Malik, whose eyes widened. Full tuition and guaranteed paid internship placement with 20 spots reserved annually for students from this community. Malik's composed expression cracked into pure joy. Around him, phones lifted to capture the moment. Organic celebration, not manufactured outrage. Parents hugged their children. Teachers wiped tears. This was not just corporate news. It was hope made tangible. Questions flew from reporters about the Caldwell's assets, about potential charges, about market impact. I answered with measured precision, neither gloating nor minimizing. I had learned long ago that dignity was its own victory. As the crowd dispersed, I found myself outside the center's entrance with Malik and Reverend Hale. We watched students file past into morning classes, backpacks bouncing, futures a little brighter than yesterday. "They thought humiliation was a leash," I said quietly, remembering frosting ground into my skin, laughter meant to wound. Malik looked at me, understanding in his young face. "And you snapped it." In the distance, sirens wailed, but this time they were heading toward Caldwell Tower, toward accountability, toward consequence. Justice, like coffee, was being served hot and black. I stood there in that glittering ballroom, frosting still clinging to my face like a cruel mask, while laughter echoed around me from people who thought they could break me with a single act of humiliation. In that moment, something inside me refused to shatter. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I simply wiped my face slowly, deliberately, looked straight into the eyes of the boy who thought he owned the room, and chose dignity over rage. That single choice changed everything. The lesson carved itself into my soul that night. Your worth is never determined by how others try to degrade you. It is defined by how unbreakably you refuse to let them. They can smear you, mock you, edit the footage, turn the crowd against you, even threaten everything you've built. But they cannot take the quiet, ironclad decision you make inside yourself to stand tall when every instinct screams to collapse. That inner resolve is the only thing no one can touch, no amount of money or influence can buy, and no coordinated attack can erase. I learned that real power isn't loud or flashy. It's the stillness that refuses to bend. It's choosing composure when chaos would be easier. It's protecting not just your company, but the dreams of every young person who looks to you and wonders if someone who looks like them can ever win in rooms that were never built for them. And when you hold that line, when you protect your dignity with the same fierce love you'd give your own child, the universe has a way of moving mountains to meet you. If you've ever felt small, ever been humiliated and told to smile through it, ever wondered whether fighting back is worth the cost, hear me, it is. Your dignity is worth every battle. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. What about you? Have you ever had a moment where you chose dignity over defeat and it changed the trajectory of your life? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I promise you're not alone. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you of your own strength, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss the next one. We're in this together. See you in the next story.